Hi everyone, this is Erin from Sandpaper Road, and in this video I'm going to show you one way that you can use chipboard with your Tonic memory book maker and spine die set. This has taken me a little bit of a trial and error to figure out one of the ways you could do it. I'm sure there's a lot of ways, but I'll show you this today. Now, look at this beautiful little mini album I made. Now, the video isn't really about the mini album itself. It's more about adding the chipboard. So take a look right directly in the center. You can see the spine and how the hinges and the cover, how it's just seamless. Now, along with that, we've got chipboard in that spine and also in the front and back covers. Doesn't it look good? I love it. I love the final look of that. Now, I will give you a final walkthrough of the whole mini album at the end of the video if you're interested in seeing what it looks like on the inside, all the pages and goodies and things like that. But right now I want to focus on the die set. This is the memory maker die set and the spine die by Tonic. The spine die looks like this, and you can make a variety of different mini albums and hinge projects and things. The memory book die set comes with several dies. I chose two, one to make the outside pages and then one to do the panels. Now for the chipboard, I'm not using actual chipboard per se. I'm just using beverage boxes, cracker boxes, cereal boxes, whatever, right? And what I did was I used the outermost, like the biggest die of the two inlays set. Do you know what I mean? Now take a look. There's the perforated mark, and then there's like a score line. Now, normally what you would do, and this is what I was thinking about after the fact, is you could leave that flap, score it, and fold it. But what I did for this project, which I like that I did it this way, was I cut off that extra. I cut very, very close to that perforation line. You can see right there to match the opposite side. Then what I did was I held that piece up to the other pieces and trimmed them so they would all be the same. Then I'm going to put two pieces together and I'm going to glue them together with some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. Now first I'm going to sand the glossy side of the chipboard, cereal box, beverage box, whatever you're using. Okay, and get rid of some of that glossy surface, and then I'll attach them together with some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. Now this is cover paper. I love using this for mini albums. I've got a small piece and a large piece. This is by Craft a Clock, and it's not just regular cardstock or pattern paper. It's actually got a little bit of a like a coating, a special coating. It almost feels like a combination of Tyvek and contact paper. Really strong. It's not you have to add glue to it. It's not adhesive already, but it's made for mini albums. So what I'm doing is taking the small piece and just cutting it in half. And because I'm only going to use one, I'm not going to make like multiple hinges. I'm just going to do one. So I'll run that through my Big Shot. And then just discard the rest. Now you can see, you can't see it too well right now the way I'm holding it. I'm trying to hold it a little closer. See these, if this is your first experience with the spine die, see these little notches right here? Okay, those serve two purposes. First of all, you can trim along those notches to adjust the size of your spine. You'll see they indent right in the, I know it's hard to see, but they indent right when you die cut it. And that's also where you put the tape. Right on those. Those are the places where you put the tape, okay, to create your hinges. Now, what you do is once you fold that up, you saw that little piece of chipboard come into the shot. And I brought that in just a little bit too soon, so I'll talk about that in a bit. Now, whatever size die that I used to cut the chipboard for my outside covers, that's the same die that I'm using to measure directly onto that spine piece that I cut. And now I can trim that right at those notches, and my hinge piece will be perfectly sized to fit my cover. Now, once I get that down, then I'm going to also do the same thing with some chipboard. And what I've already done is run the spine die through with 2 pieces of the cereal box, beverage box, whatever, glued them together and trimming them then to fit. Now I am adding the tape. I'm not real careful about adding the tape because I just trim it off the ends, and then I'm sure that it goes clear to the end. Now again, those notches, that's how we determine where the tape goes. And it's also how we determine our size. It makes it really, really nice. So I'm just going to fold, and if you've never done this before, you don't even know what it is we're doing. We're folding it so that the tape pieces that are next to each other stick to each other. That's the easiest way to describe it, and start with the center ones and then work your way outside. So you'll create this little flap that sticks up. Then you do the next ones. Press the tape onto the tape. So 2 pieces of tape stick to each other. And then 2 pieces of tape stick to each other. Then fold everything else away. And it just works itself out. You'll end up with a piece that looks a little bit like this. Now, what we want to do, and this is what I did not do at this stage in one of my other videos, is at this point we're going to snip off the corners of those little flaps that we made. Just the 3 on the inside. Those 3 little flaps. And you don't have to get all crazy and try to make them all perfect. But this definitely is the time you want to do that. So the 3 little flaps that you made on the inside of your hinge, you snip off the corners at an angle. Now, you could see that I had that chipboard and it was already perfectly sized. I did that off camera. This is, see that little flappy piece that I made? That's the size you want your chipboard. So you can pre-measure it. You can use the spine die if you want, or if you don't want, because you're going to make it the size of the hinge that's already folded. Then I trimmed off the extra piece of, it was the second half of that cover paper that I used. Remember, I cut the small one in half to match. I'm going to lightly, very, very lightly sand the middle there because it does have a bit of a coating, like I said, on it. Then I'm going to tape very, very generously along the back of this hinge piece. It really does add a lot of strength to your album. If you're a maker of mini albums regularly, you generally don't do this because the hinge piece itself is long enough with wings, like a wingspan on each side, so you don't need to glue it to a smaller, like to an additional piece to create the wingspan. But when you're using the die, it makes the hinge process easier. So I don't know, kind of give and take. It just, whatever you prefer, I suppose. I prefer this sometimes. I like the convenience and the speed. I'm just putting this on a piece of white paper just so you can see it better, because the paper I chose sort of looks like my table. So now I'm putting the hinge piece right there in the middle of that other piece of paper. And that then becomes the entire hinge with the wingspan. See how nice that is? Now there's the chipboard. Now once I've got that glued down, then that goes on the back. And what I'm going to do is tape this very, very well. This is score tape. I use a combination of the 1/2 inch and the 1/4 inch score tape when I'm doing projects. And the combination is primarily because of what you're seeing right here. I have just a little bit of space. I really want to fill it. I don't want to waste any, so the size difference is helpful. Okay. I make sure to burnish it down, and remember, this chipboard is nothing more than 2 pieces of cereal box, beverage box, cracker box, whatever, glued together. And now I've got my hinge piece. Now this can be a little bit tricky because I wanted to make sure it was in the center. I'm using a little popsicle stick, like a craft stick, to burnish in between each hinge. And that looks really good. Now I'm going to start to just very, very gently work those wings on the side. Okay, now I've got my 2 pieces of the chipboard that I've created from the box that I've glued together, okay, and they're all dry. They dried overnight. Now, I'm using 2 craft popsicle sticks. You can use like you could probably use like a pen, a marker, maybe 2 rulers next to each other, something like that, and then I mark it. Same thing with the other side. Remember, this is the back, so go ahead and use a pencil. It's not going to matter. That little detail of marking it with a pencil really, really made my life easier. I mean, it seems so obvious and simple, but marking that really, really helped me, because then I am not going to put any glue, tape, or anything in between the spine chipboard and that mark. I need to have that piece free so it bends, and that's how you're going to prevent that cracking. Although I will say that if you're using this cover paper, you won't get cracks anyway. But still, even if you're not using the cover paper, if you can do that with that mark and then not put any glue in that mark. Plus, then it makes the placement perfect, because look at that. Then you can just line your chipboard piece right up against that mark. It's just easy, easy, easy as pie. So you've got the good spacing, you've got plenty of room, you've got a little bit of wiggle room. Look how good that is, and it's real nice and secure. Now then we're going to take this whole piece and put it on the large cover piece. Excuse me. Then you'll see we fold that over, and that's how we'll create that cover. Doesn't that look good? Now, if you are interested in this cover paper, I might have said this earlier, I don't remember, but I do have links below in the description box. You can pick this up. It is shipping worldwide from Sandpaper Road. Now, this is paper. It's made in Poland by Craft O'Clock. Really, really unique. Like I said, it's not a cardstock per se. It's made for mini album covers. So you see, I just glued just the spine down to the cover paper. I wonder what I was looking for my bone folder. and burnish it really, really, really well. That's a really important step. Just start with just the spine and get that good. Then you can lift up one flap at a time and go through and do both of those flaps that way, okay? That's going to give you the best results, because then once it's completely dry, like a day later or a couple hours later, then you can gently start to lift that up and work that cover. Now, I will say, as much as I love the Tonic, the Memory Book Creator die sets, I mean, I really like them a lot. It makes adding chipboard, I really feel your pain. It makes adding chipboard just a little bit tricky, and it's because I personally really I wanted to try to preserve that little, like a little scallop or like a little decorative corner. And that's really hard to do when you're trying to wrap something in chipboard. The first attempt that I did off camera before I was recording, I actually threw out, because I was really, really trying to get that curved decorative corner to stay intact, even with the covered paper and the chipboard and all that. And it just didn't look good. So you'll see as I'm doing this that I sort of give up on the curved, that curve that comes on the decorative corners of this die set. I don't think all of them have that decorative corner. Although, I have the other, the one where it's got the scalloped edge. That would be pretty tricky with the chipboard. I might have to make a video of trying to figure that one out too. Okay, you can see here I'm using a T-ruler, and I put it at an angle, the inside bottom corner right there where the hinges are, and then that top inside corner. Okay, so the inside spine corner and the top inside corner. And I'm using my X-Acto knife, and I'm not cutting all the way through. Leave all those flaps intact, because you can figure out what to do later. This is me contemplating about that curved corner. Then you flip it around and just keep continuing. Make those little flaps and just don't glue anything yet. You can have some time to fold them over and figure out how it looks and trim where you need to trim. See, then you go to the, did I do that right? I was trying to figure out how to cut the flap here, and I think I ended up just cutting it straight. And it's going to be easiest. I was trying to, you know how sometimes you just think too much about something, and I thought, why am I trying to do all that? Why don't I just cut it straight? So yeah, sometimes it's just easier just to do straight lines. And you'll notice that I do have like a craft mat on my table. It's like heat resistant. You can use hot glue and ink and stuff on it. But I don't cut on that. I use a cut mat that can handle a X-Acto knife. Okay, so now that I've got all of my flaps good and trimmed, now I go through, I've got a little scoring tool. What do they call it? A stylus. And I'm just going over all the edges of that chipboard. And you'll see that I flipped it over to do that. If you don't have, well, if you're trimming with an X-Acto knife, then you're using your self-healing mat. But yeah, don't do this step directly on the table. Put at least like a piece of cardboard or something that can give you some give when you're using the stylus. I'm glad I did this step, even though it looks a little tedious. I mean, it looks like a step that you could probably leave out instead of like, you're basically tracing around the chipboard. But definitely take the time and do that step. It just starts to work your flaps a little bit better. So then I just add my glue, and I'm going to literally do these corner flaps first, saving whatever order you choose them to do in, just save your biggest flaps last. Like work your way as you're gluing flaps from the smallest ones gradually up to the biggest flaps. Because what will happen is the big ones will then cover up your small flaps. Although, I might have saved the corner ones for very last, did I? I can't remember if I did. I might be going against my own advice here. You can see it's kind of a wonky fold, and there really is no way, there really was no way for me to keep that decorative corner curved like that without tearing the paper. I was more concerned if I'm adding chipboard, then I'm trying to add strength to the project, so I wasn't going to add weakness to the project by damaging the paper in the corners. So okay, so I am going against my own advice, but I'm going to leave those two triangle flaps that you see in the very middle. I'll leave them for last instead of the biggest flaps. But that's because what I do, you'll see it coming up, is that I trim them down and then fold the little, I create additional flaps and fold them in between the hinges. So I don't think I had planned that out yet. I think I was thinking about this as I was gluing the other pieces, because I was like, how am I going to do that? And then I spent the time while I was gluing and folding to figure that out in my mind. But you can see, like, look closely there at the corners. Like how I just folded that. It's still an angled corner. It's just not like a circled angled corner. Do you know what I mean? So you do lose a little bit of the decorative nature that comes with the die itself. But to me, I don't mind that so much. If somebody can figure out a way to add chipboard and cover paper and keep that decorative corner like it's not really intact, that's not the word I want, but you know, just keep it with that curve without sacrificing the curve, I'd love to read your comments about that. That would be interesting. Now, again, another thing about this cover paper that I'm using today is that it's made to withstand liquid glue or double-sided tape. So you don't get that sort of warpy type thing when your glue dries. Of course, it matters what kind of glue you use, but it's made for that. So it's a lot different than using regular cardstock or pattern paper or things like that. So you can see I'm just adding the flaps and burnishing down each one. I really like using this Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I use it for, that's actually the go-to liquid adhesive I use. I used to use art glitter glue, and I like that as well. But I don't know what it is about the Nuvo that I don't know. I guess it's just a preference. I really like it a lot. It dries really quick. It doesn't get clogged. I don't know. I like the little bottles. I don't get the smallest bottles. I get like what do they have? Like an economy size or something, which is it's basically a little bit bigger of a small bottle. Okay, so here's where I was waiting to get to. So I'm using a craft stick, and I place it in the middle of the hinge and then use that as my guide to cut, because I just didn't have a ruler small enough to fit in a hinge. But this way I'm cutting my blade against a straight edge. So then I've got all these, I could see in the video I'm about ready to cut my thumb. I need to be a little bit more careful. But now I've got straight flaps. And I'm just going to glue that whole little triangle and then fold them right inside the hinge. Isn't that cool? It just blends in so perfectly and also because you've used the same hinge paper, wingspan paper, and background cover paper, and it's large enough that it folds in. It creates that completely seamless design. It's just absolutely fabulous. Plus, doing this, folding the flaps in like that, it really adds strength to your hinge. If you're wondering if those little pieces, those little flaps come up over time, they don't. That Nuvo, that deluxe adhesive, it really, really holds. The only time I've had an issue with one of those little mini flaps kind of lifting up is if I accidentally get one caught in the area where the where the back cover, where it like folds in, where the big covers are like open and close. Well, if your hinge or your little flap is kind of laying in there just kind of funny, then it kind of wants to peel up a little bit, but I just trimmed it down with scissors. So as long as it's trimmed a little bit smaller, then it'll stick just fine. So then I just glue the last flap. Yep. And it fits just good. And you can see I added an extra just cut there because I hadn't cut it quite small enough. Now, for those of you who are type A personalities, I know that you can tell that those vertical lines in the wood grain pattern are not lining up exactly. The piece that I just folded over top, I know that you can see that does not line up with the piece that's behind it. That may bother some people. Now, if that bothers you, what you can do is, remember, you have that panel die right there. That's going to go over top anyway. So you can cut out a piece of pattern paper and adhere that right over top of the cover and on the inside, and it will cover up the mismatched lines of the wood grain paper. It is hard to try to make that match exactly. So don't even sweat it. Worry more about getting that chipboard and getting a nice, secure, chipboard cover. Look at that. Isn't that fabulous? Look at that. I love it. I love it. That is great. It looks wonderful. Now let me give you a walkthrough here of the whole album and everything in it, and you can see how the cover looks as each one of those pages turn. Look at that. No cracks. I did use the panel die, that inside die, for a piece on the outside of the cover. The hinges look beautiful. I used some metal pieces that I had in my stash. Look at the dancer. Look at this paper. I put a metal piece there for like an embellishment there, and then added some ribbon for a closure. So you open it up, and there, see, I added that yellow. I die cut it with the panel die, the inside piece die, so you don't notice that the lines don't match. And I put, there's a ticket ephemera piece, and I used that to create a pocket. Then you've got some tags, inside tags there. And other, it's called Force of Gentleness is the name of the paper collection. And it has coordinating like junk journal sets and decorative cards, tags, extras to cut, flowers, leaves, chipboard dies. So there I added, look at there, you can see the inside hinge. Seamless, just seamless. It looks wonderful. And I left a pocket in there. Inside, at the edge of most of the pages, I left space where you could put like a picture or a tag or something like that. There's a space for a picture. And again, you can see the spine inside, how that just works right seamlessly and blends completely in. Look at that. Look at the chipboard die cut. Look at the dancers. And I love that those scalloped corner edges, those decorative corners of that one die cut, completely match the edges of the album. Look at that. Look at this paper. I had so much fun making this album. There's a little envelope that opens up, and I do have a magnet inside. Wouldn't it be cool to put a gift card in there if you're giving this as a gift? So then I made a chunky envelope. Oh, I forgot to show you, this pulls out here. You could put a picture in or whatever. So I made a chunky envelope and with a magnet closure right there, and then look, you can see how chunky it is. You could fit all kinds of fun stuff in there. And look at the clock. The colors are just so cool. These little decorative tabs to pull out little surprise pieces. There's like a little belly band type thing that holds different ephemera, tickets. There's a little more tags. Double-sided, so you can add journaling if you like, or even smaller like wallet photos. That's always fun to do. Here's a decorative card and some bingo cards, ephemera, that go in another pocket. You can always add a picture or two in the pocket as well. There's room. It's not stuffed to the brim. There's a place for a larger picture there. And again, look at that. Look at that seamless, how that just blends right in. Look at that, the chipboard. And then it's a little envelope pocket right there. Let me show you that it's a pocket. It goes right in there sideways. It's really cool. Yeah, love that. Love the cover paper. Love the paper collection. So thanks so much for watching. You can check the description box for links to all of these supplies that you see used here today. And thanks so much for subscribing. And we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.